On January 11, 2024, in accordance with the National Decree of November 8, 2023, number LB-23/564, periodic elections took place for the Parliamentary of Country St. Martin as prescribed by the provisions in the Constitution as well as election ordinance. On February 5, 2024, Parliament received a letter from the President of Central Voting Bureau informing Parliament that Mr. Akeem Arundel, Mr. Edward Duran, Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, Ms. Melissa Gums, Mrs. Grisha Halliger Martin, Mr. Ardwell Irion, Ms. Silveria Jacobs, Mr. Francisco Lacruz, Mr. Kevin Mengret, Mr. Cloyd Marlin, Mr. Luke Marcelina, Mr. Omar Otley, Ms. Samira Roseberg, Ms. Ludmila De Weaver, and Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams accepted their election as members of Parliament. This document is registered as incoming document IS/370/2023-2024. Between the 19th of January and the 2nd of February 2024, Parliament received the credentials from the 15 elected members of Parliament and a letter indicating whether or not they have a public function. In addition to that, the elected members of Parliament also submitted a letter indicating that they have not acted in contravention of the National Ordinance Registration and Finances of Political Parties. Those who have not been a member of Parliament before also submitted an extract from the Census Office. These documents are registered under incoming documents IS/331, 332, 333, 334, 337, 338, 341, 343, 348, 349, 353, 354, 358, 359, and 367 of the year 2023-2024. These documents are prescribed by Articles 104, 105, paragraph 4, Article 107, paragraph 1 and 2 of the Election Ordinance, and Article 53 of the National Ordinance Registration and Finances of Political Parties. Other articles of law which are applicable are the following. Article 54 of the Constitution, Parliament shall investigate the credentials of the newly appointed members and decide on matters which may arise concerning the credentials or the election itself, taking into consideration regulations established by national ordinance. Article 108 of the Election Ordinance. Parliament investigates the credentials and decides whether the elected person will be admitted as a member of Parliament. In doing this, it must be determined if the elected person complies with the criteria for membership and does not have a position that is incompatible with being a member of Parliament, and decide on matters that arise concerning the credentials or the election itself. Number 2, the investigation of the credentials does not include the validity of the election list as published by the Central Voting Bureau. Number 3, the investigation of the credentials of the person who has been declared elected according to the stipulation of Article 115 does not include matters concerning the validity of the voting. Article 2 of the Rules of Order. Each newly elected member of Parliament provide proof of his election by submitting to Parliament the documents prescribed by law constituting his credentials. Article 3 of the Rules of Order. Point 1, Parliament appoints a committee of 3 members which has the task to verify the credentials of the members of Parliament. The first appointed committee member shall be President. Point 2, if Parliament has not yet approved the credentials of the newly to be admitted members after a periodic resignation or after the dissolution of the Parliament, the committee is appointed in a public gathering in which at least half plus one of the legal elected members is present. Article 4 of the Rules of Order. Point number 1, the committee reports in writing or verbally after having verified the credentials, the other documents as required, and those received pertaining to the election. Point 2, the credentials and the documents related to them will be made available for perusal by the members of Parliament at the Secretariat of the Clerk. Before going over to appointing the members of the committee to verify the credentials, let me remind members of Parliament of the allotted speaking time of 20 minutes in the first round of this agenda point and 10 minutes in the second round. According to the speakers list, there's none.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
Social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
I will now go over to the appointment of the committee members. As members of the committee, I will appoint MP Sarah Westcott Williams, who is also the chairperson of the committee, MP Melissa Gums, and MP George Pantherflit. I now ask the clerk to hand over the credentials and pertaining documents. I will now ask the clerk to hand over the credentials and pertaining documents to the committee so the committee can verify these. The meeting is not adjourned while the committee verifies the credentials of the elected members of Parliament. I give the floor to the chair lady of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning to you, to my colleagues, and all tuned into this meeting here this morning. Mr. Chairman, the committee has verified the credentials, and all of the documents are in accordance with the law that prescribes it, and these are found to be in order. And so we of the committee advise for Parliament to approve the credentials of 1. Mr. Akeem E. Arundel. 2. Mr. Egbert J. Duran. 3. Mr. Christophe T. Emmanuel. 4. Ms. Melissa D. Gomes. 5. Mrs. Grisha Heiliger Martin. 6. Mr. Artwell Irian. 7. Ms. Silveria Jacobs. 8. Mr. Francisco La Cruz. 9. Mr. Kevin Mingret. 10. Mr. Cloyd Marlin. 11. Mr. Luc Mercelina. 12. Mr. Omar Otley. 13. Ms. Shamira Roseberg. 14. Ms. Ludmila De Weaver. And 15. Mrs. Sarah A. Westcott-Williams.
Thank you, Chair Lady and the members. Thank you, Chair Lady and the members of the committee for a job well done. You are hereby discharged of your duties. The committee has proposed to approve the credentials of Mr. Akeem Arundel, Mr. Edward Doran, Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, Ms. Melissa Gums, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger Martin, Mr. Ardwell Irion, Ms. Sylvia Jacobs, Mr. Francisco La Cruz, Mr. Kevin Mengret, Mr. Clyde Marlin, Mr. Luke Marcelina, Mr. Omar Otley, Ms. Samira Roseberg, Ms. Ludmila De Weaver, and Mrs. Sarah Westcott-Williams. Does Parliament agree with that? Yes. Now that the Parliament has agreed to approve the credentials of Mr. Akeem Arundel, Mr. Edward Doran, Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, Ms. Melissa Gums, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger Martin, Mr. Ardwell Irion, Ms. Sylvia Jacobs, Mr. Francisco La Cruz, Mr. Kevin Mengret, Mr. Cloyd L. Marlin, Mr. Luke Mercelina, Mr. Omar Otley, Ms. Samira Roseberg, Ms. Ludmila De Weaver, and Mrs. Sarah Westcott-Williams. I will, in accordance with the Article 122, Paragraph 1, Subletter A, B, and C of the Election Ordinance, notify immediately the Governor, the Chairlady of the Central Voting Bureau, and the persons admitted. I wish to congratulate all the 15 members elected with their admittance as members of Parliament. As soon as they are sworn in by the Governor on the Saturday, February 10th, 2024, they will take their place in Parliament as members of Parliament. Congratulations. Before I close this meeting, I would like to remind the admitted members that they have to submit a request to the Governor to administer the oath or declaration and affirmation as prescribed by law. The Secretariat of Parliament is able to assist members of Parliament elect who require assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurance.
RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
And while the People's Republic of China has grown, other countries have grown with it. Among them, Antigua and Barbuda, which established diplomatic ties with the Asian country in January of 1983. China has emerged as Antigua and Barbuda's most important development partner, and it is this rock-solid relationship which Prime Minister Brown sought to build upon when he and his delegation traveled to China January 22 to 28, 2024. Alongside the Prime Minister were Foreign, Trade and Agriculture Minister Honourable E.P. Chent Green, Health and Environment Minister Honourable Sir Malwin Joseph, Ambassador to the People's Republic of China Brian Stewart Young, Chief of Staff in the Prime Minister's Office Ambassador Lionel Hurst, Chairman of the National Solid Waste Management Authority Michael Joseph, Agriculture expert Dr. Patrick Lay and his wife Sharon, and myself. It was -8 degrees Celsius as we landed in the capital, Beijing, but it was clear the relations between these two states could not be any warmer.
Prime Minister, what are your expectations towards this visit in Beijing?
Certainly to strengthen the bilateral relations between Antigua and Barbuda and the People's Republic of China. We'll be signing a cooperation agreement that will take the relationship to the next level. In fact, Antigua and Barbuda and the People's Republic of China, we enjoy perhaps one of the closest relationship of any large and small country. As you know, China has been very respectful of all countries, irrespective of size. And China has been a great example for all countries globally in terms of its benevolence and the role it has played to ensure peaceful coexistence.
Says President Xi Jinping will meet with Prime Minister Brown. Premier Li Qiang will also hold a welcoming ceremony for him, hold talks and attend a joint...
The red carpet was rolled out for the head of government.
This visit is about strengthening the bilateral relationship between Antigua and Barbuda and the PRC. And one of the ways to strengthen this relationship in practical terms is to increase trade and investments. And there are many opportunities, I would say unexploited and unexploited opportunities in Antigua and Barbuda, which I believe that our Chinese counterparts should be able to exploit for the benefit of our country and certainly for the benefit of their business. Now, in terms of the infrastructure in Antigua and Barbuda, we have easily one of the best business infrastructure in the entire Caribbean region. In fact, Antigua and Barbuda has consistently experienced growth over the last several decades, and post-COVID, we've been growing the country's economy in excess of 8.5% per annum. And that is expected to continue for at least, I'd say, another decade. So Antigua and Barbuda is now the new China in the Caribbean. And we expect to see very strong, robust growth the next 10 years based on the investments that we've attracted. Within the last 2 years, we have attracted several billion US dollars in investments, especially in the hospitality sector. On a per capita basis, it makes Antigua and Barbuda the most successful country in the Caribbean in terms of attracting foreign direct investments. But The attraction of this significant amount of foreign direct investment compared to our Caribbean brothers and sisters is as a result of the superior infrastructure. So within the OECS Caribbean, for example, Antigua and Barbuda has the most developed socioeconomic infrastructure, best healthcare, best standard of education. In fact, we're the only country in the OECS that has a university. That is the Fort Landed campus of the University of the West Indies. In addition, we have an international airport and seaport, facilities that were recently rebuilt as a result of the gracious and concessional funding of the People's Republic of China.